A Conversation with John Conenna is sponsored in part by Venus Travel Incorporated in Chicago, the agency that has served the Chicagoland area for over 55 years, which is still owned and operated since 1968 by the Conenna family. Again, Venus Travel, the premier agency for over 55 years, is a proud sponsor of A Conversation with John Conenna. And now, on to our episode.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to do a little different twist to John's podcast this week. I'm going to interview John Conenna, the great John Conenna. So instead of him asking all the questions for all you people out there, I will be asking him the questions that maybe you're interested in and want to know. So I guess my first question would be.
Good evening, Dave. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, John. I'm sorry. I'm you new to this, guys. My first question is, how are you, young man?
Good. That's my opener, and I love that. Now, doing good. We're here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon here in South Barrington, and I truly appreciate this.
Well, I was looking forward to this. I was a little nervous, to be honest with you. I've never done anything like this. But anyway, I have a lot of questions for you.
Okay.
I think I'd like to talk to you about how you started your family with the Venus travel business.
Okay, I really appreciate that. It goes back to the days of my dad, Vincenzo Conenna, who started an agency in the late 1940s, 1948, 49, when European travel was basically taking packages to Europe and legalizing citizenships for people. So that was the beginning of travel agent work for my father.
Okay.
And then by the mid 50s, he got involved in a lot of European trips and had a small office after he was in banking for so many years. He would do this after work where he would do income taxes and he would do farm out travel to say the Khoshaba family that wanted to go. He would farm it out to a real travel agency and would get a commission. And this is how it starts for him, the infant steps of this. And then, of course, he decides to get his own agency.
Right. I know one of the things I think you've told me before. Oh, by the way, John and I have been friends since the early 80s.
Yes.
Moved next door to me in my house in Elk Grove. And at that time, I think Vince was born, his youngest son. And then we were there for Juliana being born. And then, of course, he saw my children. And we've been friends. We've been
long
friends.
Time history.
Yeah, we've been friends this many years. So what I was going to say is, when your dad started, he also he helped them with their visas and their passports, right? And becoming citizens who wanted to. And
yes, Dave, that's a great reminder for me. He did a lot of immigration work for the Italian community to get citizenship papers, doing land trust work, declaring them as citizens. And it was a big part of his life. And of course, the other part where he was an accountant and he went to Northwestern University, which amazed me about him because he did night school for 7 years to go to a major college. And of course, he did go to Wells High School before Northwestern. So it was something about my dad that he was able to have this almost like double life of working in a bank and then going to Northwestern to further his career.
I remember when I found out your dad had graduated from Northwestern, I was like, wow, I wish I would have went to Northwestern. But anyway, but that's how you started in the family business.
Right. I start with him actually in 1977. I'm a delivery boy for this Venus Travel. And after school, coming from Holy Cross High School in River Grove, Illinois, and he would send me all over. He would say, you have to go by Dave Khoshaba's factory to deliver tickets where Mr. Khoshaba had the spy tool, or you have to go to an account downtown, or you have to go get passports from the Italian consulate, or go to the, at that time, the passport office to pick up passports. So I was basically the delivery boy for my father in the late 1970s.
Okay. And then in the meantime, you were at Loyola University at that time, or did you?
It starts at Holy Cross my junior year, and then by the end of the start of 1979, I went to Loyola University to study broadcast journalism.
Right, and you love broadcast journalism.
Oh God, it was something to do that and hope to one day have this job. I really thought I was going to be on the radio.
Right.
And played 3 years of hockey at Loyola University. It was a club team at Loyola. So I got to play hockey, study some journalism classes, but things had happened in the family where my dad and my mom were hoping that I could learn the business and stay with dad. And but my dad always kept saying, just like how you told Alex and Elizabeth, and I've told Vince and Juliana, get your degree. You never know what could happen. But yeah, that was the onset of being a delivery boy and then going on to college and doing all this.
That's phenomenal. Now I can honestly say I know this because I know you. Okay.
Right.
The things you've done for the Italian community in your life, and you're so well known and big. I mean, there's not a restaurant we go to that he doesn't know the owner of the restaurant, or he doesn't run into people that he knows. I mean, I kid you not. How many times have we been someplace?
Yeah, we've been someplace that's
John Conenna.
Yeah, I did thank you, Dave, for that honor of honors. I mean, coming especially from you. Yeah, it's been kind of a neat thing because it's either related back to my father or the business, or knowing these people that go to Italy, and it's been just really a fun thing. When I think it's one of the greatest things when somebody can come up to you and say, "Oh, you did my tickets to Italy," or "Your father did this for us in 1960." So yeah, it's always a great thing. I've enjoyed the Italian community and trying to help and keep my father's legacy and somewhat alive.
Right. I mean, well, John was involved at one time with a radio show.
Yes.
And
Domenica Insieme, which is still on the air with Pat Capriati.
Right.
Matter of fact, I as we're doing this recording today, David, I watched it this morning where Pat had his guest on today was Frank DePiero, a real good friend of both of ours.
Right.
And I started with that was my first dabble where I got a lot of experience from that as late as it was in my life. I did that for 6.5 years with Pat. It's a great show in the Italian community.
Right. I know because I've listened. I mean, some things I didn't understand because they spoke in Italian, but they also put the American twist on it too in time when John joined.
Yes, yeah. Pat was trying to modernize the show a little bit to have both. And it's a great show. I mean, for the Italian community to watch, he plays the most updated music from Europe. And of course, there was a lot of banter between me and him, comedic stuff. And we would even have guests like this sometimes.
It was great. I mean, it was
Thank
great.
you.
I remember when we were in Italy that they were actually broadcasting in Italy your show.
Yes.
And the people, his cousins in Italy, where it was like 4:00 on a Sunday, and even though they did the show in the morning, and they say, "Oh, you have to watch John's show."
That's fantastic that you remember that, baby.
Yeah. So I mean, it's and then you got into there's so many things you've done in your life, I mean, so far, and you still have more to go.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about your hockey.
Yes.
Okay, I know. First, when you started, you could talk a little bit about when you got your first goalie glove and how how young you were.
Sure.
And then, I mean, to the culmination of coaching, playing, induction into the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame. Was a great honor for this man. I know that. I mean, because he invited me to come to his ceremony, and it was wonderful. So expound a little on your hockey.
Well, and Dave, I know this interview is taking place today, which is I think is July 2nd, 2023. I have to bring up something. Earlier this afternoon, I was at the funeral of a dear friend of mine who played hockey with me, Don Chohan, who was also at this induction. It goes back to my Norwich days, and he was one of the ones that was instrumental to get me into the sport.
Right.
But it starts early in the days of Norwich, where we played street hockey, and we would wait for a cold winter, cold days to go skate on a pond and played hockey 24/7 as long as the weather cooperated here in Chicago. But we needed cold weather. But it starts at an early age. It starts about 6-7 years old, and it goes till about 1980. And I wound up playing in leagues in Norwich. I played for a travel league called the Franklin Park Jets. I wound up playing for my high school, Holy Cross High School. And I wound up playing 2 of the 3 years at Loyola before a knee injury. But it was just a great time in my life, and I never got away from it, where I wanted to be always part of the game, even though I couldn't play anymore. And I wound up getting into coaching uh, there in the late 80s, and I did that till about 2012.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
Like,
no,
when
no.
you got into coaching, did you start coaching when your son started playing hockey? Was that the first?
You know, Dave, I started coaching right after I graduated high school, about a year
Oh.
after. A gentleman named James Nardella, whose cousin Bobby Nardella is the coach of the Chicago Wolves, was just hired this past week. He was my coach at Holy Cross. He had asked me to come back to be the goaltending coach because I was a goaltender my whole life. Because if you want to make a little side money, you can come and work with our younger goalies who were freshmen and sophomore.
Right.
So I coached for a couple of years, got out of it, wound up getting married in 1985. So I stayed away from the game. Had, of course, Vincent and Juliana. And then once Vince got to be 5-6 years old, during the time when I was living next to you in Elk Grove, I started to get back into it and then joined a travel club called the Northwest Chargers in Rolling Meadows. Wound up coaching the high school team in Schaumburg, not too far from my house, for 12 years, Conant High
I
School.
remember that.
And then had a 2-year stint with DePaul University toward the end of my career. But yeah, no, it was something that never got away from me. And there was like a fire burning in me, but those were some great years when there was the coaching years, David, that you brought up.
Well, I know this much, like because I came to a few of the games you coached.
Yes.
And it was a lot of fun. And you took one of Vincent's teams to the championship game in Illinois, right?
Yes. Actually in 2000 and it was 2002 season, we went to the state finals and lost by a disallowed goal. And actually I know you know that there were a lot of times when I didn't coach it. It was a year when I didn't coach Vincent, but it was something that I'll never forget. We got to the final game and lost 2-1 in overtime, and it still sits at me. And I still talk to a lot of those boys who now are men with families that want that moment back. But it was a great moment to come second in the state, and that was in the 2002 season. And then I was able to take a Conant High School team to the Final Four in 2006. So
it's incredible.
The great moments for me to remember, but of course you always have to have surround yourself around good players and good people.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. You get and you're a great man, so I'm sure you taught these young people the right way to live their life.
Yeah, you know what? It's something. When speaking of the restaurants, when we go to restaurants, when somebody comes up to you in a restaurant and it's an ex-player and he says, "Mr. Conenna, do you remember that game or do you remember that moment?" And I think that's the fulfillment, I want to say, David, of all those years that I coached, that you gave back something to us.
Yeah, well, you have a whole heart with these kids,
right?
I mean, you're filled, and it's been complete. And then I guess the honor of being inducted into the Illinois Hall of Fame, Hockey Hall of Fame, coaching.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, that had to be.
Yeah, it was something, Dave, because when you leave the game and you tell the state that you're not going to coach anymore, you get on like a kind of like a ballot system to see if a board of directors will approve it. And I think I was on this. It was going to be my last chance to get in, and I did get a call from a gentleman named Mike Mullally here in the state. He says, "We are going to honor you as an induction in 2019. It was something for me. And I remember people like you and Angelo Christopher,
right?
My friend who passed just today, Don Choan, and
I think I met Don once at a hockey game.
Yes, and Ron Globitz. A lot of people were there that night, and it was great to see someone like you, like I said, and Angelo and Tony Farinella. Just a lot of people were there that night, and it's something that I wish my mom and dad were there to see.
Right.
Because they saw me as a little boy really have a passion for this game, and sometimes I still kind of pinch myself to say, "Wow, I got to this pinnacle in the state of being in the Hall of Fame." But
right.
It meant a lot when I saw people like
a great honor, right? I mean, you work hard.
Yes.
You taught all these kids. You coached many years. I know there was many things you gave up.
Yes.
To go to these games, to have practices, to, I mean, I remember you being gone like 5-6 days every day coaching hockey.
Coaching hockey, and even like weekends were shot where I know my wife and The kids sometimes had to go to parties alone if the Khoshabas had a birthday party
Right,
or
right.
a wedding. But
Right.
yeah, it was something. I still will never forget that night of January 30th, 2020, being inducted for the 2019 class here
Yes.
in Illinois.
Right, right. I think I know you're a hockey fan, obviously.
Yes, yes,
Huge
yes.
hockey fan. I know you're a Blackhawks fan.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of course, we're on the downside a little right now, but it
Yeah.
looks like things are picking up
Yes.
with Connor Bedard. What do you think?
Matter of fact, speaking to a good friend of ours the other day, Brant Barton.
Okay.
I got a chance to talk to Brant, and this Bedard reminds me of a Dennis Savard that could be a little bit stronger than a Dennis Savard. He's an all-around player, and I think he's going to bring a lot to the table. And I noticed that the Blackhawks now are making moves to put some surrounding players around Bedard. They made some trades for some veteran players, but their second pick really excites me, which is a gentleman named, I think, I want to say Oliver
Moore?
Oliver Moore. Thank
Oliver
you
Moore,
for
yeah.
And he is going to be maybe the sleeper in this, Dave, to watch for. But yes, we are now turning the corner here in Chicago, having two quality players like the late 2000s of the early years of the Kane and Tays, where they got those two and surrounded.
They planted the seeds.
Planted the
And
seeds,
then they
right?
got good coaching.
Right,
and
right.
started
I
to
think
win.
I think there's going to be a little bit of excitement on West Madison in the coming years.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm excited about
Yeah.
Bedard, and I'm not a huge hockey fan like you are. You know,
Right,
Obviously, when the Hawks were winning, everybody in Chicago was a hockey fan. I mean,
right.
so we watched and watched. And
Well,
it was great.
It's like how you love your Chicago Bears.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Like I
for
love
sure.
the Bears. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think it's going to be an exciting couple of years for.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I would like to see them turn that corner. It would be great because especially with the fallout of what happened to the Blackhawks
Right,
with their
right,
scandal.
right.
Hopefully, this can maybe
Turn it around.
Turn it around.
I think the kid's 17 years old, right?
Oh God.
And he's going to be 18 just shortly. I mean,
Yes, and if you YouTube him, if you haven't never seen him, phenomenal skater, phenomenal hands, anticipates the ice very well, sees the ice very well. I think this is not the last move the Blackhawks will make. I think they'll make some moves to put some surrounding good players
because
around him. Yeah.
From what I'm understanding, I heard some of the seasoned veterans from other teams.
Yes.
They're so high on this kid.
Yes.
That they're even saying he's the real deal.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Chicago could be a hot commodity again here in the coming years.
It's too bad we all got to get old, huh?
Oh yeah.
Eventually, like Tays and Kane.
Yeah, yeah. What a phenomenal run they had from 2007 to now. And again, just like every era, in the era of the late 50s, early 60s, when we had the great Bobby Hall and Stan Mikita. So it's that my mother would say it's that wheel that keeps turning in the life.
Right. Yeah, she's right. Just you got to go through the ups and the downs.
Then the downs.
And then it happens, and then you get good again.
And I think they need to get some goaltending, but we need something like a Tony Esposito or Glenn Hall, but I think it'll happen.
Okay, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know hockey's your love. Okay,
yes.
But I know you also you just love sports.
Yes, I do.
I mean, you're a sports guy. I mean, when I talk to you, and I think even Brant, we've talked about this. I mean, the days and times and all the teams, you remember dates like from what happened with the White Sox in 1966.
Right.
I mean, I would never understand that. I mean, and you are so well versed on like the Bears, the Bulls, the Sox, and my loved Cubs.
Yes.
And I know. Tell me who's your favorite baseball team.
Well, right now it is the Chicago White Sox. Matter of fact, I'm wearing a White Sox shirt.
So, I mean, I don't hold that against them that I'm a Cub fan. I'm wearing the Cub blue.
Right.
So,
and you're a great Cub fan.
And I'm a Bears fan, but I'm a Chicago, and I think you are too. I'm a Chicago sports fan.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if I don't, when the Sox are winning, I'm happy. The only
Yes.
time I'm not happy is if they beat the Cubs, and if it was a World Series, I'd be devastated.
Right.
But since we have not seen that, I'm not worried about it.
I think we're going to see that in our lifetime. I mean, the two teams meet. I would love to see that. This town would be on its ear.
I mean,
happen.
Okay. So podcasts.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Now I'm pretty sure I've watched all of them. I mean,
I think you are my biggest, I'm not going to use the word fan, ambassador for this.
Yeah,
you have really promoted me with these podcasts.
You do a phenomenal job, and I think, some of the people you've interviewed, you've interviewed sports people.
Yes.
You've interviewed television people, media people. You interviewed something I would never know any, the softball Hall of Fame kids, and older people who played. And, you learn so much about sports and different things. And you have to understand, I don't know any of these people.
Right.
The media people I know,
Yeah, you see them on the news and everything else.
They're all, you see them all the time. So they're not, but to watch a podcast that you do and then see after 45 minutes or an hour, oh, that was really good. And I'm glad I learned something from this person,
And I noticed that coming from you and the other gentleman that Tony Farinella, that you both will come back and say, God, I was going to shut it off, but then I started listening and I learned about this, right? I learned about that. So, no, I'm really thrilled when guys like you and Tony Farinella and Angelo Christopher and now Brant. Brant wants to go. You didn't send me one yesterday. I go, Brant.
I know he's watching all the time now. But so he's retired. You can watch him.
You can watch him.
I'm squeezing him in at 5 a.m. and 5:30 in the morning, and then sometimes I get home at 6:30 at night and I watch. So.
But I love to. At first I thought, I'm just going to do sports, but then I got into the variety of different things. Like, and I think you gave me the idea. Hey, maybe you might want to interview that girl journalist, or hey, maybe you want to interview that lawyer. Which one was one of my favorite ones was Antonio Romanucci.
He was famous for what case?
The George Floyd case.
George Floyd. They asked him all the way from Minnesota to.
Yeah, and David, Chicago. I had to tell you, I was intimidated even to ask Tony Romanucci that question. What did it take to get a George Floyd case? And I still, to this day, loved his answer. I've been waiting for George Floyd my whole life, and elaborated on the case. So, yeah, I've had some fun ones, and of course, the veteran of the Chicago Bulls announcer Chuck Swirsky, Rob Johnson, who used to do the news on Channel 7, Jewel Hillary from Channel 9. There's been just a variety. Robert Jordan.
And you had Diane Burns.
Of course. My old heartthrob.
Carrie Sayer.
Yes.
The other lady from Channel 2.
Dana Kozlov.
And then I saw a podcast just recently of somebody who works with her at CBS.
Yes, Chris Tye. And of course, this great author that's who was on William Bike, who did a beautiful book about the 1970s.
He's incredible. He knows his stuff.
Author and just loves the Chicago Cubs, William Bike. Yes.
And then, of course, the two brothers.
Oh, yes, the Carl and Tony Rosica.
Oh, my God. Those guys are great.
Journey of a lifetime. Yeah, it's been really a fun type of thing with that. Yeah.
Well, I know I've thoroughly enjoyed all of them. And I try to text you when I'm done watching.
Yes,
and let you know,
it's a thrill.
Sometimes at 6:30 in the morning, I'm texting you, right?
Yes,
I've been watching since 5:30 in the morning or 5.
Right, but it's a thrill when you come back and tell me. You don't know how much I appreciate.
Yeah,
and you always your continued support with this.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Well, you do a great job. So, like I said, I've learned a lot about a lot of people that I would never know in my life. The boxer, Luke.
Oh, Luke Capuano, the great boxer from Taylor Street.
When I saw that podcast, honestly, I don't want to sound kind of weird, but I kind of love the guy. What a nice.
And David, thank you for saying that, because Luke is one of those guys that, again, he's in the Chicago Sports Hall of Fame. He should actually be in the Italian Sports Hall of Fame, and I'm hoping still to one day he gets in. But yes, he draws you in.
Yeah,
he draws you in.
He's very, very confident, but yet not cocky.
A gentle giant.
A gentle giant.
Yeah.
He was a big guy. He boxed.
He fought a guy back in 1980 named Mike Rossman in 2 matches. 2 of the greatest matches I ever saw. And of course, he fought Muhammad Ali.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Muhammad Ali.
He did fight this Mike Rossman, and they were 2 of the best fights probably ever in Chicago.
Wow.
I want to say thank you for inviting me to your beautiful home in the spacious area here in South Barrington.
Great way.
This is beautiful.
We're happy you're here.
Oh,
just because we love having you here. And your wife is in their kitchen.
Yeah,
I think they're cooking up some dinner for us, Amy and Connie. Yeah, maybe not. But anyway, but I was thinking, this whole podcast thing, I kind of know how it started, but I'm going to let you explain, because I know how it started for you.
What happened? What happened was when I was on Dominican Sieme with Pat Capriati, I felt like I wanted to do more interviews with Pat, but Pat has, that was his show, and I understood that, he had an agenda to follow where we couldn't have guests during COVID. And what happened was I ran into an old grammar school buddy named Mark Cesaric, and Mark and I decided to try it, and we started our show called Angles and Attitude.
Right.
But what happened was that between scheduling conflicts and everything else, a lot of our guests sometimes have to change at the last minute, cancel at the last minute. And sometimes we couldn't adapt our schedules. But in this last year and a half now, I decided to go on my own and
Right.
call this show now A Conversation with John Conenna, which today it's a conversation with Dave Khoshaba.
No, but it's really about John Conenna. So,
But yeah, that's how it starts. And again, I've just been going on my own for now I'd say about a year solid now. But I've just noticed myself now, with the early interviews of Angles and Attitude, we're up over 100 guests.
wow.
So I mean,
That's amazing.
And doing this, yeah,
So,
yeah.
John, when you want to interview somebody, you just
Yeah,
contact them by email.
yeah, Dave, it's been by email,
Right.
by LinkedIn, it's been by Messenger. Sometimes I get a break on a phone number or something else. Matter of fact, this upcoming week, we have the great Ron Rappaport, who wrote the book about Ernie Banks, which we're going to interview.
Right.
What happens is I usually throw an email out there and hope for a response. And I'd have to say it's about a 70-30, 70% yes, 30% no's. Sometimes the individual or the person doesn't want to do the interview, and
Let me interrupt.
you have to respect it.
I know you have to respect it, but if they don't want to do an interview with you, something's wrong with them. I mean, you're not combative with them.
No,
Actually, I know you do a lot of studying, and I know you take a lot of time to make sure the interview goes well.
Yes,
and you're not going to do anything that would kind of say below the belt type of things. You always are raising these people up in your interviews. I mean,
I try to take a style like a very popular gentleman that's on TV. I think his name is Gordon Graham Bessinger, who has a great show, and I try to follow that style. But and there are thousands and millions of podcasts out there, but yeah, I want to make it comfortable for the person I'm interviewing, that and kind of give them that lay of the land of this is how it's going to be. We're not going to bring up something that happened
20 years ago.
With a first wife or a team or something, or something that's happened. But
we're not here about bad stuff. We want to do good things, and we're talking about you and your careers or your lives. And
I want to, exactly, David. You're correct. I want to talk about the career and how it's gone in your lifetime. But I know some of these podcasts are dangerous. They can get a little raunchy. And what I've taken, matter of fact, from my son-in-law, Mike Canducci, remember, he goes, when you're doing this, and of course, Mike being a lot younger, like you're Matt, and he always tells, remember, what you're putting on a YouTube or any kind of social media is the rest of someone's life.
Correct.
So I am very careful with the studies.
And I know you respect them.
Oh, yes.
So, and I said, the biggest thing I noticed, and I think I've talked to Brant about it and some other people, Angelo, and, when we talk, we say, boy, how much homework is John doing on these people? Because that's a lot of work and effort after you've already worked all day at Venus Travel on Belmont Avenue in Chicago.
Yes.
Okay. So after you've worked all day, and I know, well, I shouldn't even say John does. When John's working, it's a full-time job, 24/7. I've been with him at dinner on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock, and somebody from Italy is texting him.
Yes.
Somebody's asking him to get him from point A to point B. And this guy excuses himself and takes care of his customer. I mean, who does that? Nobody does that anymore. This guy is 24/7 customer focused, and all these podcasts and everything that comes in between is actually because you give great service. That's what you're about.
David, I thank you for saying that. I truly appreciate that. Just like I think how your family ran this beautiful company that you have, Spy Tool, my dad gave me a great work ethic and always told me, you can't cut corners, and it just stays with me. And now with the advent of course, the cell phone, the laptop, the social media, and of course, your daughter being in the travel business
Right,
also,
right.
Alexandra. It's you don't want to miss you because it's so. My dad had a great saying in his day. So hard to get a client, so easy to lose. And
So hard to get one and so hard to keep one.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So if you, it's like a restaurant. I was talking to my brother yesterday. Okay. And we were talking. I said, when you go to a restaurant and it's a new restaurant, it looks fancy, it looks nice,
Right.
everybody's can't wait to go there. You go there and eat. If they give you a bad meal,
right,
you might never go back again.
exactly.
So it's no different in your business or my business if I'm making it a tool. Okay. And it's got to be right. So,
Right. No, you great point by you because I think I take kind of a sports mentality to this in the sense of maybe the baseball player 3-2 pitch. It's either going to be a strike or a ball. You need to make your decision of how you're going to do
correct.
this. Right.
Correct.
In the advent of how we are living now, I feel that there's no reason if you're by a phone not to answer it. I think you can pick and choose if it's a nonsense call or if it's a call for a client. So yeah, the days of the old voicemail, I feel are gone.
Yeah.
Especially in the industry, let's say that myself and Alex are in your daughter.
Right. I mean, people want to talk to you. I mean,
Yes.
that's the reason. They don't want
Yes.
a voicemail or say go
No.
here or go there. And they want to talk
Right,
to you and
right.
you're going to help them. I've seen you do it. I've
Right.
seen you do it a million times.
They want that instantaneous answer right away.
Right. Where do you think the travel business is 10 years from now? I mean,
Wow.
okay, so let me say this. I know it's evolved because
Right.
you and I have been together many years.
Oh, sure.
So I remember when the airlines cut the commissions
Oh,
on your travel agent.
I think I was crying on your shoulder.
Well, we weren't crying, but we were talking and it was terrible. And I remember because, you built this whole business giving these airlines business.
Right.
And, you're making a small commission. It wasn't that big, but I mean,
Sure.
and because prices were lower at that time,
Lower
too,
at
but
that
then they cut them in half.
Sure.
And I remember that day. I was at
Oh,
a soccer game and you came up and you sat on the bench next to me and we started talking.
Yeah, Dave, that was a huge day because a matter of fact, I talked about it earlier this morning with somebody. I didn't know where this was going to go, how my family business and my dad was still alive at that time, how we were going to, make up for this, especially having the amount of employees that we had at that time.
Yeah.
Because now you're paying employees, you're feeding a family and everything else. But again, with the help of dad, the help of myself, we had to reinvent Venus Travel to make ourselves especially in this
viable.
Yeah, that's the great word. In this internet world, we had to be ready now for this change because we knew that we were not now the marketing tool anymore. People can go on a computer, people can go on their phones to buy an airline ticket.
Right.
At the end of his career, my dad could not understand the advent of the internet. He would say to me, well, why doesn't a Dave Khoshaba buy his tickets to go to Las Vegas anymore? And I had to tell him his daughter now can go on a phone like this to buy an airline ticket. So yeah, we started to see the beginning of the end of that old style of how we did business. So we had it. Going back to what you said, make ourselves available 24/7 to the public.
Right. I think, you and I've talked about this, and of course I've talked about it with my daughter. Okay.
Yes.
I think the travel agent is going to be here for many years. Now, one of the things that the internet can't do or won't do, so you bought a cheaper ticket or you bought a trip and they're not going to plan out your trip. They're not going to send you with tour guides and pickups and rides, right? I mean, you do this all the time.
All the time.
And you follow up. I know I've been with you and I know Alex does.
Oh,
you guys follow up.
We both do.
You always follow up on how the trip's going.
Sure.
You check with the tour guides. You check with the drivers. You check with everybody to make sure your customers are getting taken care of.
Sure.
So,
sure. I mean, you have to because especially when you're in a foreign country, you don't speak the language.
Right.
And let's say you're 45 minutes to an hour away and your driver doesn't show up to take you to that destination. It's a sinking feeling knowing that, oh my God, what could have possibly happened? So yeah, you have to really service your client from the start of the trip till the end of the trip.
So they get home.
Till they get home.
And the
Right.
same thing, right? You're dealing with, excuse me, you're dealing with passports, making sure people don't forget to bring your passport. You're not gonna get out of this country. Didn't it happen to you once?
Oh,
right?
yes, many times.
Yeah.
And it just really becomes, and you must know what you're talking about because, yeah, people say, well, yeah, why should I go through you when I can Google this and find the answers? But when you're in this pinch
Right.
that you just brought up, a flight cancellation where people say, well, I went on my app and my app is down. Well, these are the things that could happen to
Right.
you. And that's why I think to talk to any kind of a professional and make sure it's not a third party professional, it's very important to find the right mix for a client to know the ins and outs, to go to a professional to find out.
Well, like you said, I know at Vita's Travel on Belmont in Chicago, all the Italians I talk to, I know quite a few of them now. They all say, if you want to go to Italy, you need to make sure you call John.
Yeah,
And
David, that's something I never would have thought would still be going on in my lifetime because my dad was well known in that era, and when there were at like 8 or 9 travel agencies around him that were Italian travel agencies,
right.
But yeah, it's something. I think there's a comfort zone that they remember my father, and there's a comfort zone knowing that I know this part of the world, and I assure them all the time that if it's 9 o'clock in Italy and it's 2 o'clock here because of the 7-hour difference, please call me. No matter what time of day, you're going to call me,
right?
Because I can help you. Don't tell me when you come back, oh, by the way, the gentleman didn't show up, but we paid, and I need to know that because I can get a hold of a dispatcher.
Right.
I could call a hotel and say,
where are you?
Why was this room dirty? Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, I know, and the other benefit traveling to Italy with you is you're fluent in Italian.
Yes.
So, and I've been to Italy with you, so I know.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, folks. It counts.
Oh yeah.
When we're there and there's an issue, I just tell John, hey, what's she saying or what's he saying?
Right.
And he can translate for me.
And it's also good when we had to order 2 pizzas.
Yeah, right.
No, but it's true. And again, it goes back to my father. He told me at one time, David, my Italian was horrible, but my father says, you will thank me. You are going to need to learn this language. I'm not saying you're going to be phonetically correct all the time, but do the best you can because eventually you will need this. And I thank God every day that I force myself to learn this language.
Right. Well, it's incredible because I've been with you.
Yes.
And your wife speaks Italian, not as well as you, but she speaks Italian.
For being born there, I think I do it better, but thank God they're in the kitchen.
We won't tell them until after the podcast. They can watch the podcast.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Exactly. So, but anyway, so I have, like I said, I've spent a lot of time with this man. He's incredible.
This is a true gentleman.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, please.
I know you do a lot of book reading. You do the research before the interview.
I love reading books.
So, what is one of your favorite sports books?
One of my favorite sports books of all time, I think, is by a guy by the name of Rick Talley, who was a great journalist here in Chicago.
Okay.
And the name of the book is The 69 Chicago Cubs, a Team That Should Have Been. It was a summer here in Chicago that I don't even know how to say this to you. It basically changed my life to the Cubs had an 8.5 game lead on August 13.
I was going to say August. Yeah.
August 13.
I learned it from you. So
the great Kenny Holtzman threw a no-hitter, and I turned to the gentleman that Don Cho, on my friend who passed today, and I says, Don, they got this. And then I still don't know what happened in that ill-fated summer, but they went on a losing streak in September that was incredible. We lost the lead. They had a great manager then, Leo DeRocher. But the name of the book is Rick Talley, The 69 Cubs, a Team That Should Have Been. David, I must have read that book 40 times hoping for a different outcome.
Change that. Maybe you should write a last chapter and edit it.
But and our good friend William Bike, wrote something about 1970 where he was able to put it in a computer, the 1970 team, and he says that they do beat the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah.
But that book is something for me, and it's a summer that made me really feel like, okay, there's always going to be adversity in life, and you can't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
And it just that's one of my favorites of all time.
I remember when the Bears in '85 went to the Super Bowl.
Oh,
Okay. And every week I watched the game. I sat on the couch. I couldn't leave. I didn't talk to anybody. I watched, I ate. And I remember them getting to the Super Bowl. And I kept thinking, God, I hope they don't lose. You know,
Right.
I mean, they were such a great team. But up until that point, I never took it for granted they were going to win it all.
They were gonna
even
win.
though they were great.
Oh my God! What a
Because
year!
anything
What a
could happen.
phenomenal.
Well, they lost to Miami that year.
Yes.
17th game.
Yes, on a Monday night,
Right.
and I'll never forget the opening second play of that game when Walter Payton fumbled and they picked up the ball, New England, and hit a field goal. And I turned and I says, "Oh, wherever the party I was at," and I says, "Can you imagine if they lose to these guys?"
Yeah, right.
You know, again,
Right.
but
So I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
When you say you can't take anything for granted, even
No.
anything in life, John.
Right.
I mean, you know, we've lived a long time. Hopefully, we
Yes.
live a lot more years. I'll be
Right,
honest with
right.
you. See our grandchildren grow up.
Yes.
And nice things like that. But the truth is that we don't know what changes from day to day
No.
in our life. So,
No.
you know,
Well put by you. Well put.
we have to
what you
take
just-
care of what we have
Right.
when we have it and enjoy that moment that you're living in.
Yeah, without a doubt. You put it very well. Very well. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know how long we've been talking because I turned off my phone. I have no idea
Yeah,
how many minutes. I don't want to go too long because I always tell them.
Yeah, we got a few minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I don't know how long
Yeah.
we've been on, but one of the things, and I wrote some questions down. Okay,
Sure.
so let's see here. Okay, so where do you get your ideas for your interviews? Do you just
You know, Dave, I love that question. It's a great question. Matter of fact, someone was telling me, well, why would you interview Jewel Hillary from Channel 9 News? I was watching her one night. It was a Sunday night. I was watching Jewel on the thing. And I says, wow, what an impressive young lady, you know, up and coming, really has done very well for WGN. I says, I think I'm going to shoot her an email.
Right.
What's the worst thing that can happen here? The word no. Right.
And you don't give up, do you?
No.
You try again.
I emailed her. She emailed me. She told me she would take her a couple of weeks. She had to look at her schedule. Again, I thought she was kind of maybe just putting me on the back burner, but she emailed me again and says, yes, let's do it. I don't know. Sometimes I could just look at a person and say, wow, like one day I was listening to an old Gary Meyer show and I reached out to Gary Meyer and Gary Meyer said, yes.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Or
Gian Greco.
Mark Giangreco was the start of this in the way of confidence.
Right.
When he had seen an interview I did about the 69 Cubs with a gentleman named George Castle and the great Ferguson Jenkins.
Right.
And I almost hung up on Mr. Giangreco because he says, John, it's Mark Giangreco. And I says, Mark Giangreco. I go, who is this? And he goes, John, I think I told you the first time. Mark Giangreco. So it was
It's
great.
really him.
Yeah. And what happens when everybody saw that first interview with Giangreco, they were like, wow, how did you get Mark Giangreco? So I guess if you don't ask, you don't know. One of the best responses I ever got, David, was from a gentleman named Chris Myers, who was on Fox NFL.
I knew Chris.
Yeah.
I saw him,
Great announcer, great sports legend, and left him a message. And one night he was at an airport and he decides he's going to call me. And sure enough, we did an interview with Meyer and we even talked. It was almost like talking to a lawyer. I asked him about when he interviewed O.J. Simpson during the turmoil of Nicole Simpson Brown.
Yeah.
So it was another great interview.
Yeah, I mean, you've had a lot of great interviews.
Yeah, thank you.
And like I said, some more famous people and that most people would know, especially in the Chicagoland area. I mean, when you're doing Diane Burns or you're doing Jim Jordan or you're doing these TV personalities or sports personalities that are on teams, we know who they are.
We had a great one this past 2 weeks ago, and I think you saw it with a gentleman who has a wellness center who played for the Boston Celtics.
Correct.
Chris Aaron. That was phenomenal. And again, just what he's done after almost going through so many pitfalls in his life and turned
Nearly
around,
dying, right?
nearly
John?
dying, turning around his career,
Yeah.
playing for some of the greatest coaches, but telling us how bad these drugs could be, fentanyl or opioids.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, he captured that interview that day. Tremendous. Again,
It was a sad story,
yes,
but a goodwill story at the end. Like when
right.
you watch the whole thing in its entirety, you see how the man saved his life.
His life.
Actually, I remember him saying Chris Mullins helped save his life.
Yes,
Chris
yes,
Mullins and his
great.
wife, great basketball player, went to Syracuse University.
No, beautiful.
I mean, and played. He was a great ball player.
Great ball player.
But
Unbelievable.
I obviously, they reached out to him and helped him so he could save his life.
Tremendous.
And
Tremendous.
that's phenomenal.
Tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, people. I mean, you realize when you watch some of these podcasts and everything that's
Right.
going on, most people I think are good. I think people want to help people
Yes.
if they can, and not even for bragging rights. Like I saved this guy's life or I helped him. It's
Right.
It's just a feel good. It's for your own personal saving somebody.
Exactly.
Making your life worth it, right?
Worth it, yeah.
To help
Very,
somebody.
very well put, David. Very,
Right.
again, just tremendous. And again, like I says, if you sometimes I'll just be sitting there and say, Chad, I always wanted to interview that person. I'm gonna try it.
Right.
And again, the confidence that I take into this is, hey, it's gonna be no, it's gonna be yes, but we'll take the chance.
All right, couple more things to ask you, and then we'll wrap it up.
You got it.
But I want you to promise we're going to do this again
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
a year or whatever, you and I.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my God, I
Okay,
love that.
So if you could interview one person, and that was the only interview you could do, who would that person be?
Well, it's gonna get a little emotional for me.
Okay,
It
that's
was
fine.
very close for me, and I was getting very close, and matter of fact, I got the response of basically a yes from his son. My idol, beside of course, my idol in my life is my father,
Right.
but my sports idol, I was getting very close after many emails and some people that knew him, but and then the tragedy happened to him. I was very close to interviewing the great Tony Esposito here, who was a goaltender in Chicago.
Oh God, I know
that
you love Esposito.
That was
yeah.
for me, and then in August of 2000, it was 2021. Tony passed from pancreatic cancer.
Right.
I had reached out to his son, and we're in the works of doing an interview, but it was something. He was my boyhood idol. Another.
I know you loved him.
Oh,
yeah.
God. And of course, another one that got away, if you don't mind me elaborating on it.
No, it's fine.
In 1971, the Chicago Blackhawks in the old Chicago Stadium on May 18th, 1971, had a 2-0 lead in the second period to the Montreal Canadiens. If they win that game, they are the 1971 Stanley Cup champions. Montreal goes on to score 3 goals in a period and a half to beat them on home ice. I never got over it, but because Esposito had lost to another great goaltender, Ken Dryden.
Okay.
But for me, to this day, if somebody says to me, who's something that you really want to interview?
Like if you could, who would it be? Number one.
Yeah, somebody said, would it be Obama? Would it be John F. Kennedy?
Right.
I said no.
Or Dave Khoshaba.
Or Dave Khoshaba.
Yeah.
And I love being interviewed by Dave.
Yeah,
It would be Tony
Esposito. I know, John, because I didn't know that answer. I just know how you felt about
and
Esposito.
I thank you for asking.
So I just wanted to know. Okay, so John's podcast, when you guys are watching out there and loving it, he always has 5 questions he has the podcast with, but I only really have 1 or 2. I don't I didn't want to put him on the spot.
You got it, no, but that's good.
Okay, so obviously we've been out to eat many times in our lives together. Okay, so what's your favorite Italian food?
My favorite Italian food is a risotto with fish in it, meaning like there would be like what they call grilled calamari in this risotto in a like a light sauce with, of course, octopus, and I love mussels, which they call cozze. That is my favorite Italian dish. A risotto, a rice with different kinds of grilled Italian fish. It's my ultimate favorite.
Ultimate favorite.
Yeah.
Does Connie cook it for you?
She has tried and done very well at it, but I have a few gentlemen in the city that do it well.
They have restaurants.
Yes, that do it really well.
I'd say, and this is why I don't want to ask favorite restaurants, because there's many of them.
Oh, yes,
I
yeah.
mean, I never really wanted to say that because there's
Right.
how many places that we've been.
Oh, my
we
God.
enjoy the food.
Incredible.
The Italian cooking is phenomenal.
Right,
and
and they've been good to me as clients, and
Right.
so I do like to frequent them.
Right.
If they're frequenting me, I like to frequent them, but
Yeah.
that is my favorite dish.
They are okay, so
Yeah.
I'll have to remember
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna ask Amy if she could maybe learn how to cook it. That's my wife. I don't think she would. I don't think she likes to cook that much anymore. But anyway, she's great. She'd try. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I want to say, since we're so close that I know for a fact that you would do anything for me and I would do anything for you.
for sure.
And I want to tell you people out there, if you get an opportunity to watch John's podcast, continue to watch. This guy's got to be seen and heard. It's all positive stuff. Okay. So at the end of the day, when you finish a podcast, you're going to come out liking it. You're going to feel good about it. I mean, you're a great man. You're a great guy. You're a great father. You're a great friend. Everything I know about you, John, you're just great.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's a word that I could say, if somebody said John Conenna, I said he's just a great friend.
I'm gonna get unprofessional on this podcast.
I didn't want to get there.
No, but here's I want to end it. I truly appreciate this interview today. I was honored that you wanted to interview me, but to our audience that'll be watching this, I moved to Elk Grove Village in 1988, and there was a house available next to this gentleman. And I just loved the area, loved the house, loved his house. And I pulled up with my wife that night, and we got out of the car and we went in with the realtor, and I made eye contact with this man. And was you interested in the house? I said, yes, I am. And he was actually doing some landscaping that night, watering his lawn. And we were in the house for about a half hour. When I came out, I knew that this is where I wanted to be. And I said, you said to me, how does it look? I go, looks good. I go, I just got to get a loan at that time, whatever the loan amount was.
Yeah.
And you
10% interest at that time.
You said to me, I'll never forget it. You better effing get it because I want you to be my neighbor.
Right.
I knew right then, David, what kind of a person you were.
Yeah. Well, thank you, John.
And I love you.
Love you too.
Thank
All right,
so much.
everybody, watch John Conenna. Go to Venus Travel. Do everything great for this man. He's a wonderful human being.
Thank you so much, David,
Thank you.
for this
Oh,
honor.
I want to do it again, okay?
Yes, we're gonna do a part 2.
All right. Part 2. You always say that. So.
We're gonna do it.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.